Maya Brooks sat in the corner of the ship's communication room, watching numbers flow across her screen. The green text moved fast, but she could read it all. Each line told her something about the empty space around their ship. Most people thought space was boring, but Maya knew better. Space was full of signals, energy waves, and patterns that most people never noticed. She was small, even for a human. The alien crew members on the CSS Horizon towered over her. The Krex warriors stood, 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and arms like tree trunks. The Valdani could read minds and spoke in voices that sounded like music. Next to them, Maya looked like a child. Captain Jack Murphy walked past her desk without looking down. He never looked at her unless he had to. Today, he was talking to Commander Zax, a Krex warrior who served as their tactical officer. Their voices were loud enough for Maya to hear every word. "The Devourers hit another system last week," Murphy said. His voice was tight with worry. "That makes 4 systems completely destroyed. Nothing left but empty space. The Coalition's best ships could not stop them," Zax replied. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "These creatures are too powerful. They eat entire worlds like we eat small fruit." Maya kept typing, but she listened to every word. She had been studying the Devourer attacks for months now. Every time one of these massive creatures appeared, she collected all the data she could find. Energy readings, gravitational measurements, communication signals from the attacked systems. She had files full of information that no one else wanted to see. The Devourers were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each one was the size of a small moon, but they moved through space like living beings. They would appear at the edge of a star system and begin feeding. First they consumed the outer planets, then worked their way toward the star itself. Within days, an entire solar system would be gone. Billions of people dead. Whole civilizations erased. The worst part was that no one could stop them. The Coalition had tried everything. Their biggest warships fired weapons that could crack planets. But the beams just disappeared into the Devourers' dark bodies. The Krex sent their finest warriors in small, fast ships, but the creatures swatted them away like insects. The Valdani tried to communicate with them using telepathy, but found only hunger. Endless, mindless hunger. Maya finished her daily report and sent it to Captain Murphy's computer. She knew he would not read it. He never read her reports. He thought she was just a communications officer, someone who answered radio calls and filed paperwork. He did not know that she spent her free time studying the enemy that was destroying their galaxy. The ship's intercom crackled to life. "All senior staff to the bridge," Murphy's voice announced. Maya was not senior staff, so she stayed at her desk. Through the open doorway, she could hear the meeting in the next room. "We've received new orders from Coalition Command," Murphy sighed. "We're being reassigned to the Outer Rim. Survey mission. We'll be mapping empty systems in Sector 7. "Mapping empty systems?" This was Commander Zax. He sounded confused. "Why are we not joining the fight against the Devourers?" "Because we're not a warship," Murphy replied. "We're a research vessel. Command wants us safely away from the fighting. Let the real warriors handle the monsters." Maya felt her stomach twist. They were being sent away because Command thought they were useless. Worse, they thought humans were useless. She had seen the reports. Every species in the Coalition was trying to help fight the Devourers except humans. The Krex provided warriors. The Valdani offered their mental powers. The insectoid Chutari shared their swarm tactics. But humans? Humans were told to stay back and let the grown-ups handle things. She pulled up her secret files, the ones she had been working on for months. Spreadsheets full of numbers, graphs showing energy patterns, maps tracking the Devourers' movements. Across the galaxy, she had found something that no one else had noticed: The attacks were not random. There was a pattern. Each devourer followed the same basic approach to feeding. They always started with the outermost planet in a system. They consumed matter in a spiral pattern, working their way inward. The energy signatures they gave off followed mathematical sequences that reminded Maya of things she had learned in school on Earth. Fibonacci numbers, golden ratios, the same patterns that appeared in seashells and flower petals. But every time she tried to share this information, she was ignored. The first time, she had approached Commander Zax with her findings. He had looked at her charts for exactly 10 seconds before telling her that warriors, not mathematicians, would defeat the Devourers. The second time, she had sent a detailed report to Captain Murphy. He had sent back a one-line reply: "Focus on your assigned duties." The third time, she had tried to contact Coalition Command directly. Her message had been forwarded to the Human Diplomatic Office, who thanked her for her enthusiasm and assured her that qualified experts were handling the situation. Maya closed her files and stared at the wall. Outside the small window next, to her desk, stars moved slowly past as the horizon traveled toward their new assignment. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were still hunting, still destroying, still killing billions of people, while the galaxy's greatest minds failed to find a way to stop them. She thought about her home planet, Earth. It was not a big world compared to some, and humans were not the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but they were good at seeing patterns, good at solving puzzles, good at finding connections that others missed. Maya's own grandfather had been a mathematician who helped design the navigation systems that let human ships travel between stars. Her mother was an engineer who had figured out how to make faster computers using crystal matrices that no one else understood. Maya was good at patterns too. She could look at a screen full of numbers and see the story they told. She could spot trends in data that took other people hours to find. It was a useful skill for a communications officer, but it might be useful for other things too. The meeting on the bridge was ending. She could hear footsteps as the senior staff returned to their duties. Captain Murphy walked past her desk again, still not looking down. Commander Zax followed, his heavy boots making the deck plates vibrate. Maya turned back to her computer and opened a new file. She would keep studying the Devourers, even if no one wanted to listen. She would keep looking for patterns, even if everyone thought she was wasting her time. Because someone had to notice the things that others missed. Someone had to see the connections that might save them all. And maybe, if she was very lucky and very careful, she might find something that could help. Something that the galaxy's greatest warriors and brightest minds had overlooked. Something small and simple and obvious, hidden in plain sight where no one thought to look. Maya Brooks began to type. 3 weeks had passed since the CSS Horizon arrived in Sector 7. Maya spent her days mapping empty star systems and filing reports that no one read. The work was boring, but it gave her time to study her secret files about the Devourers. She had added new data to her collection. Every day, she listened to emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. More systems were being destroyed. More people were dying. The Coalition's attempts to fight back were failing worse than before. Maya was alone in the communication room when her equipment started making strange noises. At first, she thought something was broken. The sensors were picking up energy readings. That did not make sense. The numbers were too big, and they were coming from empty space. She ran a full diagnostic on her systems. Everything was working fine. The readings were real. Maya felt her heart start beating faster. She knew these energy patterns. She had seen them in her files dozens of times. They were the same signatures that appeared before a Devourer attack. She checked the readings again. The energy source was still 3 days away, but it was moving toward their sector. And it was huge, bigger than any devourer that had been recorded before. Maya printed out the data and ran to the bridge. Captain Murphy was reviewing star charts with Commander Zax when she burst through the door. "Captain, we have a problem," she said. Her voice was shaking. "There's a devourer coming toward us." Murphy looked up from his charts. His face showed annoyance, not concern. "Brooks, what are you talking about? There are no devourers in this sector. That's why we're here." "Look at the readings," Maya said. She put the printed data on his desk. "These energy signatures match the patterns from every devourer attack. Something big is coming, and it will be here in 3 days." Commander Zax picked up the papers and studied them. His large gray face was serious. "These numbers are very high," he said slowly. "If this is accurate, the creature approaching us is larger than any we have seen." Captain Murphy took the papers and read them carefully. Maya watched his face change from annoyance to worry to fear. "This can't be right," he said. "Run the scans again." Maya had already run the scans 5 times. "The readings are correct, sir. A devourer is coming, and we're the only ship in this sector." Murphy activated the ship's intercom. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately." He turned to Maya. "Send an emergency message to Coalition Command. Tell them we need immediate evacuation." Maya ran back to the communication room and sent the message. She knew it would take hours for the signal to reach command, and hours more for any help to arrive. The Coalition fleet was scattered across the galaxy, fighting other devourers. Even if they sent ships immediately, they would not arrive in. Timed out, the senior staff meeting lasted 2 hours. Maya was not invited, but she could hear angry voices through the walls. They were discussing evacuation plans and emergency procedures. No one was talking about fighting. That night, Maya stayed in the communication room and worked on her calculations. She had been studying devourer feeding patterns for months, and now she had a chance to test her theories. The creature coming toward them was following the same mathematical sequence as all the others. Maya pulled up her secret files and began running new calculations. The devourers were not just random monsters. They followed natural laws, the same mathematical principles that governed everything in the universe. The spiral patterns of their feeding, the energy frequencies they produced, the timing of their attacks. Everything followed rules that could be understood and predicted. She found something else in her data, something she had noticed before but never understood. The devourers had a weakness. During their feeding cycle, they produced a specific energy frequency. It was always the same frequency, based on the golden ratio that appeared throughout nature. Maya had seen this frequency in the data from every attack, but she had also noticed that when this frequency was disrupted, the devourers stopped feeding for a few seconds. It had only happened twice in all the recorded attacks. Both times, nearby ships had accidentally transmitted on the same frequency. While trying to send distress calls, the devourers had paused their feeding and turned toward the transmitting ships before destroying them. Maya stared at her computer screen. A mathematical relationship was clear. The devourers used this frequency to coordinate their feeding process. If someone could generate the right interference pattern, they might be able to disrupt the creature's ability to consume matter. She started designing a signal that could generate the interference she needed. It would require precise timing and enormous power. The signal would have to be transmitted at exactly the right moment during the devourer's feeding cycle, and it would need to be stronger than anything a normal communication array could produce. Maya worked through the night, running calculations and testing theoretical models. By morning, she had a plan. It was dangerous and probably impossible, but it was the only chance they had. Captain Murphy called another senior staff meeting after breakfast. This time, Maya walked into the briefing room without being invited. "Brooks, what are you doing here?" Murphy asked. I found a way to stop the Devourer, Maya said. The room went quiet. Commander Zax looked at her with surprise. The other officers stared. That's impossible, Murphy said. The Coalition's best scientists haven't found a way to stop these things. You're a communications officer. I've been studying their feeding patterns for months, Maya said. She put her data pad on the table. The Devourers follow mathematical rules. They have a weakness. I can prove it. She explained her discovery about the frequency disruption. She showed them the calculations and the theoretical models. She described how they could modify the ship's communication array to generate the interference pattern they needed. This is crazy, Murphy said when she finished. You want us to attack a creature the size of a moon with a radio transmitter? The frequency is the key, Maya insisted. If we can disrupt their feeding process at the right moment, we can stop them. Commander Zax studied her data carefully. The mathematics are sound, he said finally. But the power requirements are enormous. We would need to redirect energy from life support, engines, and weapons. Which means the ship would be completely helpless, Murphy added. If this doesn't work, we'll all die. Maya looked around the room at the faces of the senior staff. She could see doubt and fear in their eyes. They thought she was wrong. They thought she was just a small human who had made a mistake. Coalition Command replied to our emergency message, the ship's navigator reported. The nearest fleet is 4 days away. They cannot reach us before the Devourer arrives. Murphy closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, he looked directly at Maya. Are you absolutely certain about this? Yes, sir, Maya said. The pattern is clear. This will work. Then we don't have a choice, Murphy said. Prepare your modifications. We'll try your plan. Maya felt a mixture of relief and terror. They were going to trust her. They were going to bet their lives on her calculations. In 2 days, she would find out if she was right, or if she had doomed them all. Maya worked for 2 straight days modifying the ship's communication array. She rewired power cables, replaced circuit boards, and reprogrammed the transmission computers. Commander Zax helped remove the heavy equipment, while other crew members brought her food and coffee. The Devourer was getting closer. Maya could track its approach on her sensors. The creature's gravitational field was so strong that it was pulling asteroids toward it from millions of miles away. Space itself seemed to bend around the massive being. Captain Murphy had ordered all non-essential personnel to prepare for evacuation. The ship's escape pods were ready to launch at a moment's notice. But Maya refused to leave. Her plan required someone to stay behind and manually control the frequency transmission. The timing had to be perfect, and only she understood the mathematical patterns well enough to make the necessary adjustments. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Devourer appeared on their visual sensors. Maya had seen pictures of these creatures before, but seeing one in person was terrifying. It looked like a living shadow against the stars, so dark that it seemed to absorb light itself. The creature was roughly spherical, but constantly shifting, as if its surface was made of thick liquid. Tendrils of energy stretched out from its body, reaching toward nearby asteroids and pulling them in. All crew to escape pods, Captain Murphy announced over the intercom. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Maya stayed at her modified communication station. She had connected her computer directly to the ship's power core. Cables and wires covered the floor around her chair. Multiple screens showed her different readings: the Devourer's energy output, its gravitational field, its approach speed, and most importantly, its feeding frequency. Captain Murphy came to the communication room one last time. Brooks, you need to get to an escape pod. That's an order. I can't leave, sir, Maya said without looking away from her screens. The frequency modulation has to be done manually. If I leave, the plan won't work. Then we'll find another way, Murphy said. I won't leave one of my crew behind. Maya finally turned to look at him. Captain, there are billions of people in the systems behind us. If this creature gets past us, it will destroy them all. Someone has to try to stop it. Murphy stared at her for a long moment. Maya could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to save her, but he also knew she was right. How long do you need? He asked. The creature will start feeding in about an hour, Maya said. I need to wait until it begins the process, then transmit the interference signal at exactly the right moment. The whole sequence will take about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Murphy repeated. Can you get to an escape pod after that? Maya looked at her power calculations. No, sir. I'll need to use all the ship's energy for the transmission. Life support, engines, everything. The ship will be dead after I fire the signal. Murphy was quiet for several minutes. Maya went back to monitoring her screens. The devourer was close enough, now that she could see individual energy tendrils reaching out from its surface. Each tendril was the size of a building. I'm staying with you, Murphy said finally. Captain, you don't need to ... Yes, I do, Murphy interrupted. I've spent months treating you like you didn't matter. I ignored your reports and dismissed your ideas. If you're right about this, you'll be the greatest hero in galactic history. And if you're wrong, at least you won't die alone. Maya felt tears starting in her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. She needed to focus on her calculations. The escape pods launched one by one. Maya watched them on her sensors as they moved. Away from the ship, Commander Zax was in the last pod to leave. He had wanted to stay and fight, but Murphy had ordered him to go. Someone needed to survive to tell the galaxy what happened here. The devourer was now close enough to affect the ship directly. Maya could feel a strange pulling sensation, as if the creature's gravity was trying to drag her toward it. Her coffee cup slid across the desk and fell to the floor. Feeding cycle beginning, Maya announced. On her main screen, she could see the devourer extending massive tendrils toward a nearby asteroid field. The rocks began dissolving as soon as the tendrils touched them, their matter flowing into the creature's dark body. Maya activated her frequency generator. The modified communication array hummed with power as it began producing the interference signal. But the signal was not strong enough yet. The devourer continued feeding without any reaction. I need more power, Maya said. She began rerouting energy from the ship's life support systems. The lights dimmed and the air circulation fans stopped running. The signal strength increased, and Maya saw the devourer's feeding pattern stutter slightly. One of its tendrils paused for a moment before continuing to consume asteroids. It's working, Captain Murphy said. Keep going. Maya diverted power from the ship's engines. The artificial gravity failed, and she felt herself becoming weightless. She strapped herself into her chair and continued adjusting the frequency. Devourer's feeding pattern became more erratic. Several tendrils stopped moving, while others began reaching in random directions. The creature seemed confused by the interference, but it was not enough. Maya needed more power to completely disrupt the feeding process. She looked at her power distribution display and made a decision that would change everything. Captain, I'm going to reroute power from the escape pod bay and the emergency systems, she said. Once I do that, we won't be able to leave the ship. Murphy nodded grimly. Do it. Maya diverted the last of the ship's power to her frequency generator. The communication array screamed with energy as it produced a signal stronger than anything it was designed to handle. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. The effect on the devourer was immediate and dramatic. All of its feeding tendrils stopped moving. The creature's dark surface began to ripple and shift violently. For the first time in recorded history, a devourer had stopped feeding, but the creature was not defeated yet. It began turning toward the horizon, its massive bulk moving slowly through space. Maya realized that the devourer had identified them as the source of the interference. It was coming to destroy them. "How long can you maintain the signal?" Murphy asked. Maya checked her readings. The communication array was already showing signs of damage from the massive power overload. Maybe 5 more minutes before the system burns out completely. The devourer was accelerating toward them. At its current speed, it would reach the horizon in less than 3 minutes. Maya made one final adjustment to the frequency, pushing the signal strength beyond what any equipment was designed to handle. The interference pattern locked onto the yaw. Creature's core-feeding rhythm, and something unprecedented began to happen. The devourer started to convulse. The devourer's convulsions grew stronger. Maya watched in amazement as the massive creature writhed in space like an animal in pain. Its dark surface rippled with waves of energy, and the feeding tendrils that had been reaching toward them began to curl back on themselves. "It's working," Captain Murphy said in disbelief. "You're actually hurting it." Maya kept her hands steady on the frequency controls, even though her equipment was sparking and smoking around her. The communication array was burning itself out, but she needed just a few more minutes. The mathematical interference pattern was disrupting something deep inside the creature's biology. This devourer was only a minute away from reaching them when something extraordinary happened. Instead of accelerating toward the horizon, the creature began to slow down. Its convulsions were getting worse, and Maya could see cracks of light appearing across its dark surface. "The feeding process is reversing," Maya said, reading the energy patterns on her screen. "It's not just stopping, it's going backward." The cracks of light on the devourer's surface grew brighter and wider. Energy that the creature had consumed from countless worlds was being released back into space. The reversal was tearing the massive being apart from the inside. Maya's equipment finally gave up. The main circuit board exploded in a shower of sparks, and her screens went dark. The frequency transmission stopped abruptly. For a moment, Maya thought she had failed. The interference signal was gone, and the devourer was still moving toward them. But then she noticed that the creature's approach had stopped completely. It was hanging motionless in space, no longer able to move or feed. The cracks of light covering its surface suddenly became blazing lines of energy. The devourer's death scream was silent in the vacuum of space, but Maya could feel it through the ship's hull as gravitational waves that made her bones ache. Then the creature exploded. The blast was unlike anything Maya had ever seen. The devourer came apart in a brilliant flash that lit up half the star system. Waves of energy rippled outward from where it had been, carrying the released matter of thousands of consumed worlds. What had been a creature of pure hunger became a spreading cloud of light and life. The shockwave hit the horizon a few seconds later. The ship tumbled end over end, its hull groaning under the stress. Maya and Captain Murphy were thrown around the communication room like toys. Emergency lights flickered on and off as the wave of energy passed through them. When everything finally stopped moving, Maya found herself floating in the dark. The ship's power was completely gone. Life support was offline. They had no engines, no communications, and no way to call for help. "Maya," Captain Murphy's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. "Are you alive?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied. Her head was bleeding, and her left arm hurt, but she was conscious. "Are you okay?" "I think so." Murphy activated an emergency flashlight. In the dim light, Maya could see that the communication room was completely destroyed. Broken equipment covered the floor, and exposed wires hung from the ceiling. "Did we win?" Murphy asked. Maya looked out the small window next to her ruined workstation. Where the devourer had been, There was now only empty space filled with slowly fading light. Yes, sir, it's gone. They drifted in the dead ship for 3 days. Maya and Captain Murphy shared emergency rations and water from the survival kit. They talked about their families, their homes, and their hopes for the future. For the first time since Maya had joined the crew, Murphy really listened to her ideas and treated her like an equal. On the 4th day, Maya's emergency radio picked up a signal. Coalition ships were approaching their position. "This is Admiral Kate Robinson aboard the CSS Victory," a voice said through the static. "We received your emergency transmission and came as fast as we could. What is your status?" Captain Murphy took the radio. "This is Captain Jack Murphy of the research vessel Horizon. Our ship is disabled, but we're alive. We have something incredible to report." The rescue ships arrived 2 hours later. Maya and Captain Murphy were taken aboard the Victory, where they were treated by medical staff and debriefed by Coalition intelligence officers. Maya told her story 3 times to different groups of scientists and military commanders. At first, they did not believe her. The idea that a single human had destroyed a devourer using mathematics seemed impossible. But the evidence was overwhelming. The energy readings from their destroyed ship confirmed Maya's calculations. The spreading cloud where the devourer had died contained matter signatures from dozens of consumed worlds. Most importantly, Maya's discovery worked on other devourers. 2. Within days, Coalition scientists had built new frequency generators based on her designs. Ships equipped with the mathematical interference systems began hunting down the remaining creatures across the galaxy. One by one, the devourers were found and destroyed. The galaxy's greatest threat was eliminated in less than a month, all because a small human communications officer had noticed patterns that everyone else had missed. Maya Brooks became the most famous person in Coalition. Space overnight. Every species that had once dismissed humanity now wanted to study human mathematical thinking. Universities across the galaxy offered her teaching positions. Military commanders asked her to train their officers in pattern recognition, but Maya chose to return to Earth for a while. She wanted to see her family and rest in the place where she had first learned to love numbers and equations. The press followed her everywhere, calling her the savior of the galaxy and the greatest hero in recorded history. Maya did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had simply done her job. She had seen a problem, studied it carefully, and found a solution. That was what humans were good at. That was what made them special. 6 months later, Maya accepted a position as Director of Pattern Analysis for the Coalition Defense Force. Her new job was to look for threats that others might miss and find ways to solve problems that seemed impossible. She kept her office simple and quiet, with just a desk, a computer, and a small window looking out at the stars. On her first day, a young Krex officer brought her a report about strange energy readings in the outer rim. The patterns looked random, but the officer thought Maya might find them interesting. Maya smiled as she opened the file. There were always new patterns to discover, new problems to solve, new connections to make. The galaxy was full of mysteries, waiting for someone to notice them. And Maya Brooks, the human who had been overlooked until she destroyed the apex predator, was very good at noticing things that others missed. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. More importantly, humans had learned not to underestimate themselves. Sometimes the smallest person in the room had the biggest ideas. Sometimes the quiet voice in the corner was the one worth hearing. Maya looked out her window at the stars and began to read.